It used to be you needed to spend about $500 to get a duty-grade striker-fired pistol. The Beretta APX A1 is commonly selling for about $400 or less. And on top of that, it's absurdly good, to the point where I'm surprised the Canik guys aren't talking about it. Welcome back to the Humble Marksman channel. I'm David and this is the Beretta APX A1. Now, I've been a fan of the Beretta APX since I first reviewed it a couple years ago. This is just the regular APX with the little ribs on the side. And they didn't have optic cuts because of the little pop-up trigger safety now, but now all of the APX A1s come with the optic cut on top of the slide. You still gotta buy the plates from Beretta, but still, they made a lot of big steps forward with this gun, and I'm here to tell you about it now. But before we do that, I do need to give a shout out to today's video sponsors. We have Global Ordnance as the ammo sponsor with the Bellom 115s and the Igman 124 grains. Optics Planet, where code HUMM does absolutely nothing and you shouldn't try it. Axle Hearing Protection, because I get to listen to music and podcasts while I film these videos for you guys with the Axle X cores. They're amazing. Hearing Pro, it's what I use. Code HUMBLE15 will save you 15% on those. There's links in the description. And most importantly, the snappiest dressers and the most clever people on the internet, my Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much. Now, in the opener, I made mention of the Canik for these people. Now, I didn't so much mean that because those guys are generally fixated a lot on triggers. This trigger is not as good as a Canik, but it is quite good in its own right. It's 6.5 pounds, but there's more to the story than that. I'll talk about that more later. What really pays the bills with performance shooting is a good ergonomic frame that absorbs recoil and allows you to stay planted on the gun. And I think that the Beretta APX A1 has one of the best frames, not just in this segment, but for striker fire guns in general. It is a very, very good frame. This is one of the easiest guns to shoot well that I've picked up sort of out of the box, and I'll tell you why I think that is. So first and foremost is the grip geometry. So they got rid of the finger grooves on the front strap of the gun on the original APX, but more importantly, it's not like a 2x4 with eased edges. It's almost more like kind of a triangle with a blunted front and kind of a rounded edge base. The back of the grip is fatter than the front of the grip, which is nice because it puts the front of the grip right where kind of your knuckles want to wrap around it, and the back of the grip is nice and wide so it spreads out recoil across the palm. Second is the removable back straps that they provide actually do increase length of pull, so if you're one of the fellow big hand boys, you can use the bigger back straps and get a little bit more trigger reach on the trigger. It makes my trigger reach almost perfect. There is a subtle but enough to be noticed palm swell on the side of the gun so that when you're building a support hand grip, both hands can kind of push into the gun, which is really, really nice. Last bit of geometry is the trigger guard. You can see that the trigger guard is very high and relieved, allowing you to get very high up under it. And there is a bit of a memory bump for your support hand so you don't run off the front of the guard. And that starts to bring us into the category of traction. So the traction on the front strap and the back strap are excellent. It is plastic checkering, but it is very, very bitey and it bites into your hand very, very well. The sides of the gun have a good bit of traction, but it's the kind of traction that it doesn't really agitate if you had it in like an inside the waistband holster. And more importantly, because this is a made in Italy gun, they have to put these little like shelves on it for ATF importation points. And usually gun companies just leave this smooth, and they actually brought traction in here. So that's actually one of the really important parts of the pistol, to get traction down to make your support hands stay planted on the gun. And the ergonomics continue as far as the trigger is concerned. The trigger has a very broad, wide face, and now the trigger safety goes completely flush with the trigger. It doesn't poke your finger at all anymore like the old guns did, which is a nice feature. And this is technically trigger pull, but it's very ergonomic, is that where the trigger pull like loads up on the wall, you're basically on the tip of the trigger because it is recurved. So even though the trigger is heavier, it's a 6.5 pound trigger on this gun, it doesn't feel like that. Like, I would not have guessed that this was any more than 5 pounds because I'm pulling at basically the very bottom of the trigger. Very few guns allow you to pull at the bottom of the trigger where you have the most mechanical advantage. And the result is a very short throw of the trigger, on a very small amount of over travel. It's very easy to pull straight to the rear, which assists in shooting accurately. Free little bonus tip for those of you new to the channel: do not put your thumb on the shelf there. You want to keep your thumb up high to create a pocket for your support hand, and that's how you're going to want to build your grip. and combine that with the good ergonomics and you'll be pulling the trigger straight to the rear and hitting what you're aiming at. Now bundle all that together with the fact this is a 29-ounce striker fired gun, which means most of the weight is going to be in the slide, which means that like with 115 grade ammo, it basically mutes the muzzle flip for the most part. One thing that was very interesting to me is it almost feels like there's these aftermarket springs you can get for a lot of other guns called the DPM system. This almost feels like it has a DPM system with how it recoils, because it doesn't throw brass very far from the gun, and it just is a very mild and tame gun to shoot. I was surprised at how easy it was to shoot. It's a really, really easy to shoot gun. I don't know how many times I could say that in the video. But being 29 ounces means that when you are trying to steady the gun, it's just a little bit easier to steady. The super lightweight guns are a little bit more twitchy. 29 ounces is, 5 ounces more than some of the other competitors in this range, and as a result, it's pretty easy to draw a bead with. Coming up onto the slide, they replaced sort of the go fast gills that they had on the old APX A1s, which I actually kind of liked. And they made the slide fatter, and I think that's contributing to the weight. They probably weight relieved it on the inside as well, but they replaced it with these really, really aggressive serrations, which are absolutely fantastic. They capped it off with an improved set of sights. It's got a tritium front sight on it, which for a sub $500 pistol, maybe $400 pistol, depending on how you buy it. That's a feature that's not available in most guns up to about $600. So it's really high value stuff. And now they have a blacked out rear sight, which in my opinion is the best set of sights that you can get for a pistol. Like a blacked out rear and a high vis front is the way to go. So getting into sort of the accessories and the like, the holster support, I checked 3 websites of big name holster makers. They're all making holsters for this gun. Then I checked magazine price, and you can buy magazines for the APX A1 for just $25, which is absurd, and they're readily available and in stock. Beretta is kind of first party supporting this a little bit. There is a competition recoil spring and striker spring available, which I imagine probably lowers the pull weight on the trigger and allows you to cycle lighter loaded ammunition, which is all to the good. It looks like there are other people doing the aftermarket trigger thing if that's your thing, but honestly the trigger is pretty squared away. And it's got a modular frame. Now it's not like the grip modules like SIG is doing or other people are doing, where the modules are small, medium, or large themselves. Beretta just sells a grip module and it comes with these 3 back straps. Now putting the small back straps on there, it does still have kind of a longish trigger reach. My wife, who has small hands, wished she could get a little bit more finger onto the trigger, but in my hands it felt absolutely tiny. My wife's not exactly a shooter, so maybe it works, I don't know. Now no gun is perfect. They all have their own kind of drawbacks. This gun is no exception to that. So first and foremost, the gun is pretty fat. So if you were to carry this in an inside the waistband type holster, it's going to create a bulge in your belt line, and it's probably going to contribute to printing. The back of the gun is shaped in such a way it's probably not grabbing your shirt too bad, but at the same time, like, homeboy is very, very thick. The box it comes in is pretty lame, and the latches sort of wear out. It's not even worth showing you guys. Just, it's not a good box, but who really cares? The takedown's a little bit peculiar. You're gonna want to release the striker on an unloaded gun, either by pulling the trigger or using a pin and pressing this button right here with the slide moved like back just like that much. But I'm just gonna pull the trigger. Now you have to press in on the back of the takedown button, sort of like that with both thumbs to get it to pop out, and then you can rotate it down and the slide comes right off the front. And the back straps come off a little bit weird. Like, you can see the retaining pin down here, but you don't just pry it out from the bottom. There's actually, the top of the pin has like a little nub that interfaces with the frame. So you're gonna use a punch or a Allen wrench or something to move this to the left and kind of push it down. That'll make this pop out of the frame, and then you just pull the pin out and the back straps pop off. And that's really it as far as the negatives are concerned. And that is why I am scratching my head, because as easy as this gun is to shoot, as value priced as it is, as good as this gun is, nobody's really talking about it. And I don't understand why. Like, this seems to me like this would be the default, like, I'm going to the gun store to buy my first gun kind of thing. And it doesn't cost that much money, and it's really good. Like, I don't get it. I think this gun is going to be easier for most people to shoot, even with guns with like slicked up really fast triggers, because the frame is so squared away. I just think this gun is more stable at speed. It's a really good gun. It's not just good for like a first time gun buyer. It's a good gun in general, and nobody's talking about it. I don't understand it at all. It's fantastic. So for like a home defense gun or even a duty gun, because the trigger guard is pretty generous for like a gloved hand, This thing's pretty squared away. It's like, I can't overemphasize how easy the gun is to shoot well. I'm curious what you guys think about it, so let me know in the comments. Appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.